Got it. We are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, rebel writers out there in the world doing the work. I am here and so are you, and I'm so excited about today's guest. I will introduce her in just a moment. We'll give Facebook bots just a second to let everybody know we're here. Let me check that we're here on our phone and let us know in the comments. Say hello. And there we are. Ooh, look at that. We're so cute.
Good. Good looking.
Well, yeah, I know. It's great. It's great. Well, let me introduce my special guest today. I'm super excited. I don't typically get to talk with people who are in my hometown here in Iowa City. So this is a special treat for me. Lauren Haldeman is the author of the graphic novel Team Photograph, which I have right here. And I just finished reading it just a few weeks ago. She's also the author of Instead of Dying, which was the winner of the Colorado Prize for Poetry, Calenday, and the Eccentricity is Zero. Her work has appeared in Poetry, Tin House, the Colorado Review, the Iowa Review, Fence, Tupelo Quarterly, and others. A graphic novelist and poet, she's received an Iowa Arts Fellowship, a Sustainable Arts Foundation Award, and fellowship from the Iowa Writers Workshop, which is, of course, the main staple here in Iowa City. So welcome, Lauren. It's so great to have you here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Lauren is currently at one of our favorite establishments here in town. Look at that.
Very lights.
Support your local bookstores, people. Keep them alive. So I want to talk to you today about your most recent book, but also just about the writing process in general. Here in the Rebel Writers Group, we have all sorts of people doing creative work, a lot of entrepreneurs, and as writers, essentially, you know, you are an entrepreneur. You're out there promoting your stuff, working with people, doing the thing, putting your heart and soul out there. So let's just dive in a little bit about what makes you rebellious as a writer in your particular craft. What would you say makes you a rebel writer?
I mean, I think I rebel against myself. There's a lot of times that I don't want to write. And then there's a lot of things I don't want to write about because they make me uncomfortable or they're difficult or I'm not sure if I'm going to do it right. So there were parts of the book too where I just was like, I don't want to write about this. And so I kind of had to rebel against myself and say, no, we need to go towards this. We need to write about these things. And we're going to grow and learn from doing that. But it takes a certain type of courage that I think is part of being a rebel.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that the book, there's, you know, I went out trying to see if there were other books like this book that was graphic novels mixed with poetry, and there weren't any. And so in a way, I was sort of like rebelling against both like just the regular poetry collection and the comic book and trying to make my own like new thing.
Yeah. So you just spoke to two very big things that I feel like so strongly. That first part, the rebelling against yourself, the resistance, right? And I think a lot of us can really connect with that because we have to push back that resistance. Those stories that we're too afraid to tell or don't want to tell because they bring up all the shit, you know, that maybe we just don't want to deal with. Let's keep those doors closed. So how, you know, I'm totally speaking from experience too. You know, there are some stories that I just run from, but how do you get to the point where you're able to kind of overcome that resistance? And you mentioned the word courage, and it certainly takes a lot of courage. So what are the things you do to kind of get past that?
I mean, I love research. because when you're using research and going out into the world and doing research, you're sort of like separating a little bit from your ego. And a lot of what holds us back in that fear of not wanting to approach things is the ego. And so, you know, if you can get out and research, even if it's a personal story you're wanting to tell, to research parts of it. Does it have any historical significance? Did it take place in a certain place? Did it take place during a certain time? And then research that. I find that those give me like the information I find give me really good like grappling hooks for scaling the wall, things I can hold on to. And then also the work itself has this sort of legitimacy, I think, when you include research. You know, it ballasts it in a way so that it doesn't feel necessarily just like a first person like memoir. It feels a little more expansive, which I always like to make and to read.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I love that idea of having something tangible and outside oneself. Like it's not just your story. And the reason we tell our stories is because there's usually some sort of universal theme, right?
Yeah, totally.
You know, the human experience. And so research, you have just totally inspired me to get some stuff. So thank you. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Well,
and
and so
I love like stealing from research too. Like there's so many like good lines and phrases and way things are put. Like when you're reading, if you're reading like old articles, or if you're going to a museum and looking at like the place marks and reading the language there, like it's just, I love the sort of language of like historical documentation and museums and stuff. And I love that.
you know, and you just spoke to something really key that I think a lot of people who may or may not consider themselves writers maybe don't understand or haven't accepted about the process, in that like you going out to the museum to do the research, that experience is your work also.
Yeah.
Like being a writer isn't just sitting at the computer and typing out stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's an adventure. Like you get to, I don't know, I felt like it was an adventure to go out to, for the book, this for Team Photograph, go to specific battlefields, go to specific museums, visit different sites, and then just like sometimes just jot down the language that was there on like, you know, signage, or free write in the location.
Yeah, and really pulling from that. So let's talk specifically about Team Photograph. This was such a beautiful read. And it's multi-layered. We have, you know, a lot of historical context. This takes place in Fairfax Station, Virginia. And it's memoir-esque, right? It's about when you were young and on the soccer fields, and sort of laced in between your own childhood experience is also the history and how that plays out. So so being able to pull from that research and those experiences, you know, I see how that led to the inspiration. What do you think? I mean, even, you know, exactly what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, the sign. Yeah, the Robinson House. Loved drawing those.
Yeah. And so, you know, I don't know that I can necessarily, that I'm like pulling out a question here, but I'm just like, the adventure that you went on and that is weaved into the story you tell is the same adventure that we get to go on as the readers.
Oh yeah, I like that, you know, and that, I mean, that really, when I started writing this book, I had no idea that it would become what it became. The book sort of led me in many ways. And what happened was, as I was trying to figure out how to write the book was writing how it was being written. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It makes
Okay.
total sense. Well,
Like it
and I
just
think
had to
that
be part
happens
of
a
it.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and we talk about, oh, you need to have an outline, you need to know where your book is going, you need to, you
Yeah.
know, but so often, you know, we really kind of have to let go of the expectation of what it's going to be in order for it to flow, like to really
Right.
tap into that creative flow.
Yeah.
Is there
And it's not easy. Like there were so many times where I wanted the book to be done. And there were so many stopping points where I could have stopped, but just was pushed further to sort of, I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of times where I would go to editors with it and they would be like, we really like this idea, but we don't quite get this or that. So then I'd be like, shit, well, now I've got to go and clarify this or that and like push it even further. And through doing that came this sort of form and structure that I would have never dreamt up on my own.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Well, and really highlights the importance of having other people kind
Yeah.
of on your team as the writer. Like, and you know, you mentioned early on like the ego and how much it can get in the way. And I think that that's another key piece in allowing the work to come to fruition, to being brave enough to put it out into the world where other people are gonna, you know, look at it, have opinions, and
Yeah.
you know, so that's definitely like that courageous part, but it also allows for almost like a collective creation
Yeah.
that maybe takes some of that weight off.
A little,
I don't
yeah, a
know,
little
there's a
bit.
balance there.
I mean, I had so many people giving me input on this, not meaning to, I mean, I've been working on this book for almost 2 decades. One of the poems written in there was I wrote about 20 years ago. And so, throughout there was a lot of rejection too with this book. It was just a poetry collection that got rejected a lot. I changed it to a poetry collection with essays. There was rejection there. The whole process of making it a comic book, there was rejection there. So that's the other thing too, is like even like with the rejections, I would get comments, the kind rejections would come with comments like, this is great, but we don't understand this, or I like this idea. And so in a way, like the rejections helped shape it and made it more of like almost a collaborative piece. But man, those rejections they're hard to get, they're hard to get, especially when you feel like you've put so much time into a thing and you don't know the end outcome of it. And you do a lot of waiting. You do a lot of waiting to hear back from editors and publishing houses and agents and that sort of thing. And
Right.
but yeah, I mean, if anything, I learned that those rejections were really key to the way the book ended up. Like they really helped direct the movement of it.
That's amazing. And I think it brings us all a little bit of relief to hear that, you know, pieces of this are at least 20 years old, because you know,
Yes.
we all have those pieces that have been just sort of lying in the wings, you know,
Yep.
waiting for their right time and their moment.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
couldn't let it go, like it was, I mean, there are several projects that I have that are old and I would love to revive, but this one I just could not let it go, so
yeah, well, and I'm so glad you didn't, because now it's here and
yay.
we get to enjoy it with you. So beautiful. Yeah, and I want to make sure that everybody here in the Rebel Writers group knows how to find you. We'll put the link to your website and where you
Okay.
can order Team Photograph from all the major outlets and of course your local bookstores. So we'll make sure to get the link out. Any last words of wisdom for maybe some of us who are just on the verge of perhaps publishing a first book or a first chapter in a
Yeah,
something.
just keep going. I mean, the waiting is so hard. It's like it can make you physically ill just waiting. And a lot of times, like there were times with this book where I thought it's never going to happen. I was mourning the book, you know, mourning that it wouldn't happen. And then it did, but that was after, you know, quite a bit of time of rejection after rejection. So just keep working on it, keep going. And I mean, and listen to people. You know, it's sometimes hard to get criticism on a piece that you or, you know, love, but like take a little bit of flexibility into that and see like maybe this could make it even better.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. Keep going, everybody. And you
keep
too
going.
can have your book in your hands, just like Lauren did.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Yeah. All right, Rebel Writers, let us know what lands for you. Let us know what's tapping you on the shoulder, because those dreams do not give up. They don't. They just keep tapping. So make sure you're listening to those. Be your rebellious self. And as Lauren said, keep going. All right. We will be back again soon, Rebel Writers. I'll see you next week.